And that ball is stroked. Gone! Oh my goodness, on a frozen rope.
Throw in there on one hop. Out! Oh, he hosed him.
Hop steps, great dump off, and a two-hand jam. Oh, I got good news. It's that time of the week again. Happy 4th of July weekend, and here's episode 16 of White Noise Sports with Tanner White, complete with a brand new intro. This is the fourth one I've used so far. I like to keep changing it up. If you're new to the show, I mentioned it a couple weeks ago, but the intro sound bites are from some of my favorite highlight clips that I've made with my commentary, and I really do hope you enjoy this new one. Last week, I attempted to break down the Oilers' absurd comeback attempt against the Panthers in the Stanley Cup final. Then it was the NBA head coaching carousel and J.J. Redick hopping on it to get to L.A., and of course, Bronny James headlining the NBA draft, even though he was one of the last guys drafted, going 55th to the Lakers. Oh yeah, plus those other 59 picks that could change the league landscape themselves. This week, we absolutely have to talk about NBA money. If you have a kid that's, say, like 5'8" or taller by middle school, please just put a basketball in their hands, see what happens. You gotta let them try. They can have your family set up for generations if they make it in the NBA. It is absurd nowadays. Who do I even really start with? I mean, I should probably pick LeBron, but people are just probably tired of hearing about him for the last 21 years. One of the guys I'm shocked by is Tobias Harris heading back to the Pistons. The Pistons, of course, had just made a long-term commitment to Cade Cunningham, which, not a bad idea, right? A former number 1 overall pick, and he's only going to get better. So Tobias Harris comes in with another Hall of Fame agent moment, getting 2 years and $52 million from by far the worst team in the league. That's not news. When that deal's up, he's going to be up over $300 million in career earnings, with career averages of 16 points and 6 rebounds. You know who made right around that much for his entire 23-year career? Tom Brady. Then, of course, there's Paul George. Everybody speculated he would be leaving the Clippers, and in fact he is, heading to the 76ers on a 4-year max. That's about $54 million a year, something in there. Not shocking, but also probably an overpay for a guy who's 34. Of course, I have to mention the Lakers and LeBron again. I'm honestly a bit tired of it because of just how much they dominate the media cycle, every offseason, but even more so this year. I'm going to go off on a quick tangent into bandwagons if you don't mind. So, I'd have to say my favorite team's the Lakers, and my favorite player is LeBron. It's almost that exact same situation I had with Tom Brady growing up, and pretty much my entire life, by the way. If you enjoy excellence, if you want to sort of watch the best of the best all the time and only that, then those are the guys to look to. Some people just can't stand how good they are or good they were, and that's totally valid. It's only been a couple of weeks with the Lakers in the offseason, but look, they lost in the first round to Denver. They got handled. They're probably not going to be any better next year either, and they're always going to feel like they're one piece away unless that whole rest of the league regresses. Did you hear all the hype that LeBron was going to take a pay cut so they could sign an all-star? Yeah, right. Define pay cut. Don't talk about it, be about it. The max LeBron signed this week adds 2 years for $104 million on top of his current deal, and I heard it has a full no-trade clause too. I always wonder, is it built into LeBron's contract that he gets to control everyone and everything throughout the league, or is that just sort of his voodoo magic? As I speak, the Lakers have made 0 roster moves besides signing Bronny and Dalton Knecht to their rookie deals, and I'm not sure where the money would even come from to bring in any more big names now. The most hilarious part about the Bronny deal is that they're talking about having him spend most of the season in the G League anyway, and yet it was a fully guaranteed 4-year contract. Fascinating. Does it hurt to be named LeBron James Jr.? Because I have a feeling that it does not. Let me think. Who else is making nonsensical money? There's Tyrese Maxey. He got over $40 million a year for 5 years, but he was also this year's most improved player and an all-star. He is a dog, and for once, he's probably somebody that's earned every dollar, so respect to him. I don't even really want to give the Klay Thompson deal too much airtime because I don't think it really moves the needle for Dallas at all. They still don't upgrade defensively. In fact, they arguably get worse. There's the running joke, of course, that Klay shot 0 for 10 in an elimination game. Still, you see what Dallas is trying to do, forming another sort of big three, but it's just not going to work. Klay's getting $50 million for 3 years, whoop-de-doo. It's actually not very much money, so credit to them for that at least. Jason Tatum's another guy that at least went out and truly earned his money this year, of course, winning the finals. Tatum's our next record breaker to tackle, making $314 million for 5 years. He absolutely was the Finals MVP, even though, of course, he didn't win the award. They gave it to Jaylen Brown. Whatever. The numbers were clear enough. Tatum just has that it factor. He effectively, turned into a point guard during the finals, and guys that continually sort of evolve their game like that, they're huge. Best player on the best team, and you just won the finals, that all checks out to me. Jason Tatum deserves that. In summary, that's not every single contract move that we've seen so far for the offseason, but truly, NBA money is so different. You're doing a disservice to your kid by not having them play basketball if they show any natural ability. I mean, any at all. Here's a cool little side story that I just heard about in the realm of firsts and making history. The Seattle Kraken, the NHL's newest expansion franchise, have existed for a grand total of 3 years, and they've already hired more female assistant coaches than the rest of the league in 105 years. Not such a good look. Does that make them 35 times better as people? Who's to say? Jessica Campbell will be the first woman in NHL history to be behind the bench. She had been with the Coachella Valley Firebirds, that's the AHL affiliate, the last 3 years as an assistant. During her time there, they won back-to-back conference championships. Campbell's a retired pro player in Canada, and she had a really accomplished college career at Cornell, too. All of this on her resume at only 32 years old, it's super impressive, and it puts her miles ahead of most coaches in any sport at her age. Of all the sports that hadn't had women sort of break any of those barriers down, I'm curious why hockey was one of the last. I guess some people might point to possibly the reduced body checking and hits and physicality in the women's game. In that way, it's a lot like lacrosse, which I could talk way more about, by the way, and I absolutely love. It's the sport I've worked and covered the longest. I'm pretty certain most of the really good women's hockey or lacrosse players would be willing to absolutely wail on each other, but they're confined by the rules a little bit, which is a shame. Other arguments are always that the big hits will bring the bigger TV ratings and marketability, but there'll always be some people complaining about the risk of injury. The full contact component of sports, right, tends to be one of the only differences between men's and women's sports when there are any. And we as a society should probably experiment with that more. This is absolutely not the direction I thought that this episode would go when I started spitballing ideas, but I finally have some fun stuff to talk about, and it's totally new. So let's head back to Jessica Campbell with the Kraken and think a little bit about what her big break here means for the rest of the sports world. We have to be getting close to female head coaching in male sports leagues, I would assume. The qualifications are all there. The experience working in sports at lower levels is starting to creep up. Women are employed in every athletic training room, nutrition department, strength and conditioning staff. I can't imagine that we're going to have those head coaches breaking in any later than, say, 2030. Anybody want some futures odds on that? That reminds me, the Raptors big man Jonte Porter that had gotten permanently banned for gambling, he is going to be charged with a felony. It's crazy, but totally unrelated. So, obviously, I want to see women in coaching happen sometime, if no one can present a logical and convincing argument why it shouldn't. A bigger talent pool should always lead to better talent overall if you're talking meritocracy and sort of survival of the fittest. Look, I do love all of these other sports, and I've tried to actively stay away from football for a few weeks, right? Let some of the good stories marinate. I'm still holding off on a couple of things like quarterback battles and contract holdouts, the other kind of camp drama stuff that always works its way out. I have decided, though, that I'm ready to name the best remaining NFL free agents. I've been holding on to this a long time to see where some of these players end up, and I didn't imagine I'd have to wait nearly this long with some of them. I'm going to give you what I believe are the 4 best available players in order. I'm splashing right in with number 1, cornerback Stephon Gilmore. I personally think Gilmore is going to have a good chance of being a Hall of Famer. The resume goes like this: 5-time Pro Bowler, 31 career interceptions, 2019 Defensive Player of the Year, 140 career pass breakups. I think as a whole body of work, you'd have to say he's the most accomplished defensive back in the league, not named Patrick Peterson. So think about Stephon Gilmore. He's been on 4 different teams the past 4 years, and he's literally always locked it down. He had some injuries in 2020 and 2021 that led to him playing less than full seasons, but he would be an upgrade at least one corner spot for 75% of teams maybe. At this point in his career, let's say you're concerned about him losing a step. Okay, so he can be a nickel corner, or you could even move him to safety if you think he's truly that slow, but he is one of the best press man corners ever. Gilmore's last deal with the Colts was $10 million a year on sort of a mercenary deal. I'm sure he would cost less than that now, and you could always just lower the base pay and then crank up the incentives. If you're loaded at corner, I think you should picture him as just a safety and let him play there. I'm sure he could extend his career even further. So many other guys have done that and been really successful. Now, speaking of safeties, here's a pair of them who are super highly accomplished, incredibly smart football players, and they're still on the market. I just don't get how that happens in July. We're looking at Micah Hyde and Justin Simmons. If I had to put one ahead of the other, I guess I'd say Simmons is the second best player available and Micah Hyde is third. Justin Simmons has 30 career interceptions in only 8 years with the Broncos. That's crazy enough on its own, but also a current streak of 3 straight All-Pro teams. I kind of feel like this would be the longest ever that a guy with a streak like that has had to wait not being rostered. Micah Hyde came up in Green Bay, and he was definitely good, started to get some recognition, but he became great with the Bills, and he's one of the most underrated safeties in recent years. Hyde has 24 career interceptions. He's constantly one of the best guys in coverage. Weirdly enough, only has 1 Pro Bowl to show for it, but we know that especially at DB, stats are weird, and Pro Bowl voting is even weirder. So my question is, do front offices just not value great safety play? That idea is just so laughable to me. You've seen a coverage bust before, right? Where your team gave up a 70-yard touchdown because the safety didn't communicate or somebody played the wrong technique. That happens at least a couple times a week in the NFL. Are both of these guys 30 or older? Yeah, but they get to line up at 12 yards from the line of scrimmage. Someone sign both of these guys immediately, or you'll get torched deep at some point during this season and you'll end up wishing you did. Now, for any team that needs a quarterback and hasn't found one by July, you'd probably better be prepared to win no more than like 5 games. It's got to be the most important position in sports nowadays. I don't think that that's too controversial. The most experienced quarterback not on a roster right now and my number 4 available free agent is Ryan Tannehill, formerly of the Dolphins and Titans. He's 36 years old. Now, say what you will, he started trending downhill last year before getting benched for Will Levis. He's not the best at protecting the ball. I know that, and those are valid concerns. That said, Bryce Young is going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL this year. Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell with the Raiders. Sam Darnold or J.J. McCarthy with the Vikings. The Broncos, I have no idea. I mean, they could flip a coin between Bo Nix, Jarrett Stidham, Ben DiNucci. The point is, not if, but when all of these guys play poorly, teams like that are going to need a veteran option that they can turn to keep them afloat for a while if they want to make a change or just sort of let a guy reset. My argument here is Ryan Tannehill could be that guy for at least a dozen different teams as a backup. Tannehill has 35,000 career passing yards, almost 250 touchdowns with a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Is that amazing? No, but it's really good and probably way better than people would expect. With the insane injury rate of starting quarterbacks last year, I'm almost 100% certain Ryan Tannehill plays some football in 2024. That would be another great futures bet if it's offered somewhere, so snap that up. There's a couple of other guys, sort of honorable mentions, who I still think will find work eventually. It might not be the start of this season, it might not be this year at all, but they shouldn't be done playing football permanently. First one I'm going to point to is Connor Williams. He was a salary cap casualty from the Dolphins. He's an above-average guard and center. If you're thinking I'm not quite sure who he is, that sort of explains why, because offensive linemen are just never going to get the love, no matter if they're some of the best. When it comes to Connor Williams, he's only 27 years old, and if he hadn't torn his ACL in December, he'd probably start for somebody. Emmanuel Ogbah is an 8-year veteran. He's an edge rusher with 42 career sacks. He's also really well known for knocking down passes at the line of scrimmage, just kind of has a knack for that. Donovan Smith is the Chiefs' right tackle that everybody kept blaming for false starting, if you'll recall the season opener last year against the Lions. It's not a false start, by the way, but he is stretching the rules about as far as you could. I'll admit that. Smith got his second Super Bowl ring, and he still got sort of thrown out on the street. You feel a little bit bad for him? The issue with Donovan Smith as a player, he is known for racking up penalties in general. Not just false starts, but you don't find many 6'6", 338-pound tackles with 2 Super Bowl rings out on the street by the time you get to, say, October or November. That just doesn't happen. Like I said, I expect every single one of these guys to make a roster in 2024 or shortly thereafter. And of course, if I'm wrong, then every team and every front office is dumb, just like when I'm wrong in any other sport. Last item on the table today, the MLB All-Star rosters. Those just came out on Wednesday night. Baseball's best team absolutely crushed the voting in a lot of ways, and they fully earned it. The Phillies are going to have Bryce Harper at first base, Alec Boehm at third base, and Trey Turner at shortstop, all starting. They just missed out on the full infield, and it'll still give them the most All-Star starters of any team this year. One little technicality, Dodgers shortstop Mookie Betts, of course, who was my NL MVP pick before the season, he won the vote over Trey Turner, but he's still out with a broken hand. That was back on June 17th, hence Turner's going to be the starter. Bryce Harper was the leading vote getter in the National League overall, and Aaron Judge was the leader throughout the league. Please hold your gasps of astonishment. The full roster reveals are coming on Sunday evening, so keep your eyes peeled for those. It's time for the semi-weekly Tigers rant. If I don't see Riley Green for the Tigers, I'm going to have a meltdown, and also the voting process is completely rigged. He is the only position player on that entire team that makes them tolerable to watch. I'm still not certain if Tarek Skubal is going to be the AL starting pitcher. He went 2-2 in June with a 3 ERA. Now, that's amazing for many guys, but it wasn't as unbelievable as his first 2 months were. Unfortunately, it might be the Royals' Seth Lugo starting for the AL with the most innings and wins in the league at the time of recording. Kansas City, and again, I absolutely hate to say this, they're overachieving in so many ways. The only other guys I'd consider voting for from the Tigers, Jack Flaherty, Reese Olson, Jason Foley. Notice, none of them are in that atrocious batting lineup. If it's only Skubal and Riley Green who are actually selected, though, that's fair enough to me. In the National League, I'm all but certain that they're going to be starting Ranger Suarez on the mound. Chris Sale from Atlanta is a great dark horse, actually, and he has utterly revived his career. I'm still kind of shocked about that. I'm not going to give the whole rosters, but I will point out a few quick surprises that leapt out at me. The Brewers' outfielder Christian Yelich is 32, and he hasn't been an All-Star since 2019. He and the Diamondbacks' Ketel Marte had the longest active droughts, if you will, among guys that are old enough for that. Now, this is just an awesome story. There's the Padres left fielder Jurickson Profar. He was drafted in 2009. This is year 12 for him in the major leagues, and he finally made his first All-Star team, plus he's going to start. That is all but unheard of. Isn't baseball just so poetic? I also assumed that the Dodgers were going to have more representation with how insanely loaded their lineup is, but they only have Shohei Ohtani at DH among all their starters. The voting was literally just a formality at designated hitter. Ohtani's started 4 straight now, and he's so unsurprisingly the first guy that's ever done that. Everything he does, he's the first one to ever do, if we're being honest. Of course, the Dodgers should have had Mookie Betts starting at shortstop. He was leading pretty much the whole world in every stat before he got hurt. Their left fielder, Teoscar Hernandez, had a chance, but he lost another real close race to another Padre, actually, in Fernando Tatis Jr. As I glance over the rosters, I actually feel like the fans got almost everything perfectly right. I don't know that I've ever said that before, but that's sort of what the internet is trying to tell me too. Trey Turner is the one weird one. He's only played 47 games at the time of recording. I love batting average as much as anyone, and he would be leading the National League at .338 if he had enough at-bats to qualify. His other totals, though, 5 home runs, 18 RBIs, struck out 37 times to 12 walks. That's insulting to some people. There are even a handful of other National League shortstops that have clearly had a bigger impact overall. Now, only because they've played a full slate of games, mind you, but games played should be a factor in probably just about any award. Ironically, Trey Turner hit 2 of those home runs and drove in 4 of the RBI on Wednesday night after the voting had closed. The numbers would have looked a lot worse. Still, this one will need some footnotes in the baseball reference pages, you know what I mean? That's baseball for you, though. If you leave voting up to the fans, you never know what they're going to value most. And that'll do it for episode 16 of White Noise Sports with Tanner White. I really do need football back so badly. Fortunately, high school and college football will be here before we know it, and everyone can slake their thirst a little bit. In terms of things I'm planning to get to soon on the show, there's still the collapse of regional sports networks with the Diamond Sports / Bally debacle. There's WNBA All-Star selections, Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark on the same team. There's the Paris Olympics that I kind of want to dig into a little bit. Again, you'll just have to keep coming back and listening week after week, or you can always feel free to hit me on my socials if you have an idea for me. Instagram and TikTok at The Voice of Tanner. Connect on LinkedIn if you're into that kind of thing. And, of course, leave a like, comment, and share. This has been episode 16 of White Noise Sports with Tanner White. Thanks for joining me. And that ball is stroked. Gone! Oh, my goodness, on a frozen rope.
Throw in there on one hop. Out! Oh, he hosed him.
Hop steps, great dump off, and a two-hand jam.